For the third year and counting, Richard Skipper has been celebrating the artists you love. Richard Skipper is all about celebrating life, art, and his guest body of work. Please join us while he showcases these diverse and talented individuals. Here's Richard Skipper.
Happy Fat Tuesday, everyone! Who or what are you celebrating tonight? I am very excited because I have a great guest on tonight. I have been delving into his life, his career, and his body of worth. And I have to tell you, first of all, a big shout out to Rosa Puzo, who brought our guest tonight. And so I am so thrilled that this was able to happen. And it just so happened that it fell on Fat Tuesday. Now, I want to explain something to Howard Tucker. Fat Tuesday is derived from the fact that it is time to get all of the fat out of the house. You can all respond to that in any way you desire. But it's all about cleaning everything out so that we go into the Lenten season. And so tonight, after this show, I'm going to have pancakes. It's my last big indulgence before I start to slow down in terms of my eating over the next few weeks. But enough about that. Let's talk about our guest. It's such a great honor to have him here tonight because he has a cookbook, he is a teacher, he has written children's books. There's just so much to celebrate tonight. And I am going to bring him on right now. And I am so excited to sit down and talk with you because, first of all, last night, and you know this to be a fact, we tried one of the dishes in your incredible cookbook, JC in the Kitchen. And I love it. And it was great. We had the lemon chicken française last night, and it was so perfect. So, John.
Yes.
Who or what are you celebrating today?
Today, well, just like you with Fat Tuesday, there's a recipe actually in the cookbook of a spaghetti pie. It's on page 106 and 107. I'll give it a plug. That we have every year since I was a child, the day before Ash Wednesday, because it's filled with cheese and it's filled with meat, pepperoni. So it's something that we have since I was a child. So that's how we celebrate today, Fat Tuesday.
Now, who did you celebrate with today?
Just family and friends. We got together, and it's a yearly tradition. And then we will decide what we're going to give up for the next 40 days.
Oh, good. Now, what are you giving up, may I ask?
Oh boy, that's tough, Richard. I mean, I think cookies are my weakness, so I'm gonna try that.
And I will say you've got some great cookie recipes in this.
I do.
I can't wait until after Easter to try those out. So again, Rosa Puzo, brought you to my attention, but you're like Zelig. I mean, when I have gone through and I've looked at all of the celebrities, we're going to see some of them pop up on screen. When I saw that you broke bread with Rosemary Clooney and George Burns and Jack Lemmon, how jealous I am. But I want to ask you, and this may seem like a woo-woo question to kick off tonight, but do you believe in manifesting? Do you believe that you've manifested this incredible life that you've had?
I absolutely do. As a kid, I always enjoyed film and television, so I would write to everyone. I would just write, maybe at the back of a magazine, they would say, here's where you can write to your favorite star. So I just started writing to people, and apparently I must write some nice letters because these people started contacting me. They started contacting my parents and asking to meet me, whether it be they were performing here in New York or in Atlantic City or out on Long Island, and we would go. And then the relationship would just continue after that. So it's amazing. And it just snowballed even up until today. I make connections with so many people.
I do want to tell everybody you have an incredible, I've been listening also today to your interviews. You've interviewed everybody. We've crisscrossed a few, and there are some real good gets that I'm wish that I had. But in any case, they were so incredible. And you really get in there because you ask the questions that everyone wants to hear. I love the fact that you and I have one thing in common, and that's that we're not gossipy and that we don't go down that path. Has that always been a rule of yours, or I call it celebrating these artists. Uh, do you? I mean, you obviously must feel that you're celebrating them as well.
Right. So the podcast is called Up Next with John Contratti, and I'm on my second season. And just to backtrack a little bit, how it came to be, as you mentioned earlier, I was a school teacher, and my final year of teaching, I taught for 31 years. Um, it's something I always did in my classroom. My students, since I know actors and famous people, my students always interviewed these people, whether it be in person, they would come to the classroom through Skype or Zoom. So the last year of teaching, the height of the pandemic, I was an in-person teacher when many people were virtual. So how am I going to make it fun for 16 kids in a classroom that we had to stay in all day and stay together? So knowing people and reaching out, I got, over 30 of the most amazing people to Zoom into the classroom, and my students would interview them. I mean, Henry Winkler, Carol Burnett, the list is endless. So when I was getting towards the
And I
end,
want to say thank you because you are also letting these kids know about those that have come before us. So
right.
that's good. So kudos to you
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, they did their research, and then they were more than happy to do it for us. So when it got towards the end of the school year, Bonnie Hunt was one of our guests. So she says to me, "Well, what are you going to do now?" You know, I said, "I don't know. I have a few ideas. I want to maybe get back into acting. I always wanted to do that." So she said, "What about a podcast? Since you're so good with the kids interviewing people, why don't you do it on your own?" So that's how
Mhm.
my show came to be. And to get back to your question, yeah, my questioning, I want them to feel comfortable and happy. I was talking with somebody today who might be on my show, and we're talking about some of the things that they wouldn't want to talk about. And these are things I would never even think of bringing up. So, yeah, it's not
And
my
isn't it sad
personality.
that they would even have to bring that up?
Right. But the list of people, like you said, I mean, I'm always amazed by the people I've met that I know and the people that are coming on my show. I know you said you look through some of the names. It's just amazing to me.
Carol Burnett. Now that's one of the holy grail interviews for me. So
Right.
God bless you that you got her. I've been wanting to get her on this platform for the longest time. So congratulations on that. I
Thank
want to go back to something that you said earlier. I want to go back to when you were, let's say, 5 years old. And those who watch the show know that I believe that the 5-year-old is the purest self. It's before life begins to tell you who you should be and who you shouldn't be, teachers, peer pressure, all of that goes into that. Tell us a little bit about what you were like at 5 years of age.
At 5 years of age, I think I knew I wanted to be a teacher. I liked school, going to kindergarten. I liked playing school. Kids like to play school. I always had to be the teacher. I would never be the student. I always had to be the teacher when I played. So becoming a school teacher was in me. I had a first grade teacher, Mrs. Barnett. She was a leap year baby. So when I had her, she would have been 64, but she said she was 16. And she was an amazing teacher. So she put me on the path at first grade. I mean, 6, 7 years old. So I knew from then. But as was getting older, I loved television. I loved film and going to the movies. My parents, we go to the movies every week to see something. And I knew I liked that as well. So what I did was then I went to the HB Studios in Manhattan to study acting, but I also went to Hofstra University to become a teacher.
Good
So
for you. I mean, my first grade teacher, Miss Meredith, had such an impact on me as well. And God bless you. Everyone knows that teachers are the most overworked, underpaid profession out there. So congratulations for 31 years of doing this.
thank
But
you.
I want to go, back also. You knew very early on that you wanted to be a teacher. Uh, did that have a higher pull for you than the world of acting and show business?
At one point, I think it was probably 50-50. And then when I got into teaching, maybe it became 70 teaching and then maybe 30 with the acting and the entertainment industry. I always kept my foot in the entertainment industry. I'm one of those teachers who went to work an hour and a half before I really needed to be there, setting up and doing my thing. And then I would stay late sometimes, but sometimes I would have to leave early because I would get invited to these most amazing things, and I wanted to stay involved with things in Manhattan and the entertainment world. And I'd get home at a very late hour, but still I'd be at school the next day. You would never know where I was the night before and who I was with because I would just get back into my teacher mode.
God bless you. Uh, I love the fact that you said that your parents used to take you. Did you have brothers and sisters, or do you
I have two
have
older,
brothers and
I have
sisters?
two older brothers. Yep. Yeah.
And so I can imagine the family getting together and going to the movies. In those days, I'm thinking not that long ago, was when we went to movie theaters when it was just one theater instead of the cineplexes.
Right. I mean, we just heard the other day that Stella Stevens passed away. So when I
Yeah.
was 7 years old, I could tell you the day, the time we went. We went to see the Poseidon Adventure, which still scares me today. Those type of movies scare me more than horror movies. And we would go as a family to see those films. And then as my brothers got older, they're a little bit older than I am. They would go out with their friends. So I'm the youngest one. So my parents and I would go see everything, all the new Disney films that came out. And then as I got older, you know, certain movies I was able to see then.
Yeah, I remember when the Poseidon Adventure was sold to ABC television, and it was the first time it was shown on television. And I had the same feeling that you did. It just scared the you know what out of me. But you mentioned again also earlier that you, in the back of the magazines, and I got those magazines too. We probably got the same magazines.
There's a
Grown Up
photo,
Parents Hollywood.
maybe a photo play, maybe magazine or
Yes.
something. Yeah, sure.
And who was the first celebrity that you reached out to?
The first person who I ever wrote to and who I still know today was Ann Jillian. I really enjoyed the TV series Making a Living, which was on
Yes.
ABC. And I wrote her a letter. And, and she wrote back. She sent the autographed picture. And then I wrote back again, like a little pushy, I guess. And then one time she put at the end, P.S., what's your phone number? And I'm like, oh boy. So I sent it to her. And one night, it was 20 to 10 Eastern time. So it was about 20 to 7 California. The phone rang and I just like picked it up. I was probably like maybe dozing off. And I said hello. And then I was like, well, who is this? And she said, this is Ann Jillian. So from then on, and then we've met numerous times, wherever she was performing. And I've stayed in touch with her and her husband, Andy, for the other day. I mean, I was emailing him. She just had a birthday not too long ago. So
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Ann Jillian was the first person I ever wrote to. And when I saw that happen, I'm like, I'm going to write to a lot of people and see what happens. And then George Burns' secretary, a man by the name of Irving Fine, he was like a producer as well,
Yes, yes.
contacted my family. And then we went to Atlantic City to see George. And then I would stay in touch with him and talk to him on the phone. And then, as it got later in his life, then, he was more quiet and get to speak to him on the phone. So I would talk to other people that were in the house.
What was the reaction from your parents and from your friends that you were hobnobbing with these celebrities?
My parents, I mean, were always amazed. You pick up the phone and Jay Leno was on the phone. I mean, it's really bizarre in most people's minds. And they enjoyed it. My father was always like, all right, well, where am I driving you now? Where are we going? So, he was the driver. So he would get me there. And sometimes relatives would come. My brother and sister-in-law, I was invited to meet the Pointer Sisters in the 80s.
Wow.
So my brother and sister-in-law came. And yeah, so it was a big deal. And then as I got older, I was able to do it on my own. I was able to go into Manhattan and see a Broadway show. And I would be invited to go backstage after the show to see whoever was performing. So then I started doing it on my own.
So you did make the decision to become a teacher. And when you first began teaching, I mean, was it everything that you thought it would be? Was it not what you thought it was going to be? What was that like stepping into those shoes?
In the beginning, I mean, from the very beginning, I loved it. I just couldn't get enough of it. I just enjoyed creating things and teaching the kids. And every year you have a new class. But I will tell you, and it'll lead into the cooking part of my life, by the time I got to year 20, I think in any job, you need to reboot yourself. You need to mix it up a little. So in year 20, I was like, well, I got to do something different because I feel, didn't I just teach this yesterday? I mean, it was a year ago, but I felt like I just taught it yesterday. So I need to do something different. So I started cooking in my classroom. Nothing huge, but I
Now,
started.
how did the idea come about that you started teaching? I mean, that you started cooking in the
Well, I
classroom?
think I was teaching fractions in math, and I'm like, just there are certain ways you could do it. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Why don't we use measuring cups? And why don't we have an end product? I mean, I could bring in measuring cups, and we could just say 1/2 plus 1/3 and whatever. Why don't we make something? And my parents, I mean, they were so great because we would make certain things that need to be baked. They would come to the school, pick it up, bring it home, bake it for me, and then bring it back.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, it was, and something I got some of the parents to do it. Parents would run to the school and run home to their oven. So that's how I started cooking different things in the classroom, and it really helped with math. And then I sort of got,
What was the reaction from the kids when you came in one day and said, "We're going to cook today"?
oh, they loved it, and it really helped. It really helped with their math grades, and they understood it better instead of just the paper and the pencil. Not that I'm knocking paper and pencil; you need paper and pencil, but they really got into it, and it was something else that I guess I created that just put me on a different path of other things in my life.
But do you think that it was a whim that you were having at that moment, or do you think this was something that you really thought through long and hard before you made that first move to do so?
Well, I knew I liked to cook, and I believe that a teacher should bring into the classroom outside things that they enjoy doing, so the kids see us as full human beings. We're not just
Mhm.
some kids think maybe we sleep there. I don't know, but I wanted them to know all the different things I liked, and I would show them old TV shows and old films. I mean, I followed the curriculum. I did everything I was supposed to do, but I wanted them to know everything else that was out there for them. And
Now, where did you teach?
I taught on Long Island, New Hyde Park, Garden City Park,
Mhm.
and it was good school district, and I had great administrators all the whole entire time, and I'm very thankful. They just let me do what I did because they knew I was doing my job over way and beyond.
There's a
And
whole conversation going over on in the comment section that has nothing to do with what you and I are talking about.
right.
Everyone pay attention, please.
So, but yeah, it was very interesting.
That's wonderful. When I was growing up, I grew up in South Carolina, and it was rare, if ever, that I ever saw one of my teachers outside of the classroom. And there was this mysterious thing about the fact that we didn't know a lot about the teachers. It seems to me that that's changed a lot. That there's after school things that teachers do with the students and everything. At least that's what I hear and believe. Do you think that that's changed a lot, or was it the same thing when you were teaching?
What do you mean with the kids realizing that teachers are real
No,
people?
I mean, this connection that teachers have outside of the classroom with their students.
Um, Sometimes I think it does reflect on the things that you do. It depends on the class that you have each year. Every group of students is different. You get to try it all over again every September. So it's different when my final year of teaching, I had the most amazing, receptive bunch of students I've ever had in my entire career, which is, you know, for your last year, you would hope you get a class like that. And it was like the best. I mean, I've had lots of great classes, so I know they're watching. But my last year students were the most amazing group of kids you could have ever asked for.
Was it easy to let go of that? I mean, I knew that you did it for 31 years, but what was the deciding factor for you?
I think it was. I mean, you would never know COVID was going on when you would enter my classroom. And that was my job. That was my whole job. I wanted the kids to walk into the room and totally forget what's going on out there in the world. And they did. I mean, you come to school every day and you're going to be interviewing, Linda Carter, Wonder Woman.
Mhm.
It's pretty cool to come to school every day. So it was hard to let it go a little bit, but I knew I wanted to go and do other things. So I dedicated myself 31 years to my students and I loved it. But then you think to yourself, okay, it's my turn now. What else do I want to do?
Well, I mean, the cooking led to other things. I'm going to bring up a couple of things here that I want to share with everyone. I mean, first of all, you've written two children's books and a cookbook.
Right.
Um, did the same, obviously, they're very different genres. I know that. But in terms of the process of committing yourself to these projects, is it the same type of a situation or is it completely different?
It's a little different. I mean, when I first started writing my first children's book, which was Cooking with Mr. C, it's basically about a teacher who cooks in his classroom. So sort of came from my life. And then after it was released, it did better than I thought. And that led to Mr. C Takes Manhattan, about a school teacher who takes their students into Manhattan on a field trip and takes them pretty much everywhere you could possibly go in the city, including to see, Broadway show, which me and other teachers, we did for years. We would take them and do that. But when I was cooking in the classroom, I got discovered. A woman by the name of Lucinda Scala Quinn came to my classroom. She's a cook, and she worked for Martha Stewart, and she had a cooking show on the Hallmark Channel called Mad Hungry. And when they heard I was doing that in my classroom, I got invited to go on the show and cook on the show. And it just led to a cooking blog, and then eventually
How did they hear about that? How did they hear about it?
a lot of newspapers would pick up on different things I was doing in the classroom. We had a publicity person in the district, so we wind up in Newsday and like local papers. One time I think we were in the Times. My last year of teaching, we were all over the place about all the famous people that the kids were interviewing. So
Mhm.
it gets out there.
Well, I have a question here from Danielle, and she wants to know, what was your biggest hope for your students?
Biggest hope for my students every year is that they can see that they have potential in whatever they're interested in doing, basically, because they all have different abilities and you have to play on that. And I like to know from the very first day of school what their interests are. So I have all that material in the classroom, and and let them be who they are and share the things that they like. I mean, I know you have show and tell in kindergarten. I think you should have show and tell up until like 6th grade, because they
I
discovered.
think we should have show and tell up to 62 at least.
Okay, we'll do that.
So, the children's books, let's start there first of all. Were you writing these while you were still teaching, or did this come after the fact?
Well, this is all going on while I was teaching. Everything, even up till the cookbook. The cookbook was finished while I was finishing my last year, and then came out, at the end of
Mhm.
2022.
Well, you just made a sale because Natasha just ordered Cooking with Mr. C for her niece who loves to cook.
Well, thank you,
So
Natasha. I appreciate that.
thank you. We both do. Um, so once you are out of the classroom, was it an easy transition? I mean, you did all these interviews with these celebrities while you were in the classroom and everything. All these other elements, all these other hats that you wear, was it an easy transition for you as far as moving out of that? I know that you started doing work in films. You were in Flawless, How to Walk On in that. I auditioned for that film, by the way. Didn't get it, but you did. So was it an easy transition for you to finally go out there and start doing these other aspects of your life that you had dreamed about and thought about?
It was pretty easy. I didn't know how I was going to feel the following September when school would come around. And actually, I was so busy with the podcast that when you retire, this is just my opinion, you need to have something to do.
Hmm.
You have something that you want to do comes the fall. If you happen to be a teacher, the fall comes around, you get into the mode of going back to work, and now it's not there for you anymore. So I had a lot to do. And like I mentioned, I had gotten an offer that I turned down. Actually, everyone says, why would you turn it down, for a film playing a teacher? I think I could have done that. I think I could have pulled that one off, but I turned it down. It was out in California, and then just the time and the location, just I couldn't do it. But I think maybe it'll lead to other things. It wasn't meant to be, maybe. So but no, leaving teaching, it might have been difficult the last day. It's hard to say goodbye. And you might think about it for a week or two after, but once you get into the groove of a new life and doing different things, it
Mhm.
it was pretty easy. And I'm still in touch with my last class. I saw them yesterday actually. So and some of my teacher
Great.
friends were still, it's still a part of my life. I think about it a lot, but this new life is it's pretty cool. What's going on?
That's great. I want to talk about. I want to bring up a couple of comments and questions that we have here.
Sure.
And Frances says that when she was going to school, no one was interested in her as a person. Your books sound fantastic.
Thank you.
Um, I was very fortunate. I was like the teacher's pet. That might surprise some people. I mean, I loved going to school. I loved my teachers. I was very fortunate with all of the teachers that I had. And I also think how lucky I was at the time that I went to school to have the types of teachers that I had who took a genuine interest in me. In some classes, some teachers, if they're not great teachers like yourself, uh, may teach the class as a collective as opposed to individuals. How
Right.
were you able to differentiate and and treat each student as their unique self?
It's a lot of work, and if you're a dedicated teacher, you'll do it. And I
Mhm.
know many. I have lots of friends who are teachers, and they're great teachers. And you just know that's what you need to do if you want to have a successful year. And some kids are quiet, and sometimes there'll be a quiet kid, and by the end of the year, the parent says, "My child is no longer quiet." I said, "Well, I'm sorry, but they came out of their shell, and they have interests. They have opinions. You know, uh, not to mention names. I mean, I had a group the second to last year of teaching, and they would interview lots of famous people, not as many as my last class, but I had some girls in my class who were they had strong opinions, like after they were done with the interview on what they thought of the person they interviewed. And nine out of 10, I agreed with them as we were very thankful for all these people. I mean, the list is endless of people over
W-
my career. Get
Were these opinions, excuse me, based on what came through the interview, or was it based on what they had heard or read about these people?
know what came through in the interview and how the person came across. So very insightful students, especially my girls that year. And I tend to agree with them. I mean, everyone was always lovely to us, but I could see where they were coming from. I mean, so kids are bright, you have to listen to the kids out there. They know what they're talking about. And you have to have a good ear for kids.
Well, I
Being
love the fact that you had a discussion. This was a learning tool, so
Yes.
obviously you had discussions about these people afterwards. Who was the biggest get that you had when you were teaching that you could not believe said yes to you?
I had Fran Drescher come to my classroom. That was pretty big. At
Wow.
Yeah, her and her husband at the time, Peter.
Yes.
Yeah, they came out to my classroom because at the height of the nanny period in the mid '90s, my students loved the show as I did, and I still watch the reruns.
You
And
watch it?
I contacted them. I said, you have a class here. I'm sure many other classes around the country that just love your show. And she said, all right, the next time I'm in New York visiting her parents from Flushing, Queens,
Yes.
um, I will come to your classroom. So I was like, okay. And you want to believe it. There were a few naysayers when I told people, I said, she's going to come to the classroom. And they was like, she's not going to come. She came to the classroom. CBS News came to the classroom. It was a big event. But Henry Winkler was always the favorite every year to Skype and Zoom into the classroom. Henry's the
Uh,
best.
yeah, I have a photograph of you and Henry here. Let
Oh,
me pull
which
it
one
up.
do you have?
Yes. Well, there are a few here.
There are a
I've got
few
so
of us.
many photos. Let me bring up a few of the photos,
Okay.
and you can just give your first impression of what pops into your head
Okay.
as we do this, just to
Okay.
give everyone a glimpse as to the hobnobbing. It's
Oh,
incredible.
the hobnobbing. Okay.
No, that's
Oh,
not
I don't
one of
know who that
yours.
is.
That's one of mine.
Yeah.
So,
Dame Judi Dench. Yeah, very nice lady. She was in a Broadway show called Amy's View, And I wrote to her, and I was like, well, I don't think I'm going to hear anything. So I knew Kay Ballard. I don't know if you knew Kay Ballard.
Oh,
And
yes,
Kay
yes.
Ballard would say to me, oh, and I told her, and she said, oh, she's going to write back to you. I'm like, how do you know that? She said, I know she'll write back. And she did. And I got to meet Dame Judi Dench.
That's incredible. And I look at this.
Uh,
I don't know who
yeah,
has better eyes. I have to be honest
yeah.
with you.
Oh, so this is like maybe the third time I met Mary. I had met Mary years ago. She was in a Broadway show with Lynn Redgrave called Sweet Sue. And then this picture of me and Mary, we were at the opening night of Annie Get Your Gun, Bernadette Peters, and we sat together at the party afterwards at I think we're at Tavern on the Green. And behind Mary, I don't know if you can see. Can you see who's hiding behind Mary?
Is that her husband?
Well, behind me with the glasses is her husband, but
Yes.
behind her, you see someone crouching down behind her.
Who
You
is
see
that?
That's Joel Gray. He was at our table also.
Oh, I mean, one of the nicest men out. Have you interviewed him?
I have not. I would love to. So, Richard,
He
if you
is
know
just
him,
such a great, great
pass him
guy.
along.
Uh,
Oh, Chaz, yeah, another nice guy. Yeah.
Chaz and I did a lot of theater together. We did
Hmm.
the Shrew together. We did a musical called The King's Men. And you're absolutely right. One of the nicest people on the planet.
Yeah. This was I was invited to a actors event where they were honoring Sally Field and Danny DeVito that night. It was a great night. Yeah.
And you two could pass for brothers in this picture.
Yeah, I guess we could.
Yeah, that's a great picture.
Tim Minchin, he wrote the music for Matilda on Broadway.
Yes. I watched the musical last night on Netflix.
How was it? I didn't get to see it yet.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
Mhm.
I mean, Emma Thompson will surprise you. I
Mhm.
mean, just completely out of her normal performance. But
Yes, Kristen Chenoweth in the Charlie Brown days, sure.
yes, yes.
Yeah, just lovely, and still is lovely. Regis, yeah. I don't look very happy in that picture. He was
Well,
poking.
again, I think I think of the movie Zelig because it seems as if you take on their personalities. Again, I think you could be brothers in this picture.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, and it
And I
is
love
Rosemary
this. Come
Clooney.
out of my house.
Rosemary Clooney. So she would always ask me to see a copy of my report card. Isn't that amazing? She always wanted to make sure I was doing well in school, and I would make a photocopy of it and I would mail it to her.
Wow.
It's
God bless
unreal.
you. Well,
It is.
she seems like an Earth Mother type of a character,
Mhm.
person.
Uh, Kim Cattrall, I don't care what people say, the loveliest. So
I
kind.
love her.
She is the nicest person, and I've seen her a few different times, and this is when Private Lives, I guess. Did she do was that she did Private Lives on Broadway?
Yes.
Yeah. She's lovely. I mean, I just think she's great. Meredith Vieira. Known Meredith for a while, a few different times. Did a charity thing with her, and then she invited me to her talk show a couple years back when she had a talk show.
Wow. I
Yeah,
thought that I had the picture of Henry Winkler. I don't.
yeah.
I thought that I had
But
uploaded.
but Henry was on Broadway with John Ritter, and I wrote him a letter saying that I grew up Tuesday nights pajamas on the living room floor watching Happy Days, and he said, "Would you like to meet me?" And I said, "Absolutely." And I met him, and then known him ever since. And then he wrote children's books, so that was an attraction also for me and my students. He has a whole series of books that he wrote. It was actually him and Julianne Moore who pushed me into start writing my children's books, and my second book is dedicated to the two of them actually.
That's wonderful. Now let's talk about your cookbook.
Okay.
It is Fat Tuesday,
Mhm.
and food is the universal. Uh, what's the word I'm looking for? It brings us all together.
Mhm.
It ties us together. It connects us with each other. And as I look back over, uh, and I've been very, very fortunate myself to break bread with some of the people that I've admired, just sitting at a table and hearing their stories, and them talk about the business and everything. There's nothing better for me. And when many of my friends that are watching now, sitting at my dinner table, I love to cook. I love to me, I don't need material things in my life, but dinners with friends, to me, it's the greatest thing in the world.
It is. I agree with you. I always found cooking, they say it's like therapy. I find it relaxing where some people would just say, "Oh, it's too much." Um, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn. It's like I- when you're a guest on my show or I get to meet people, I'll send you a book. I'm more than happy to send people a book. So I send it to Ruta Lee. She says, "Well, maybe I'll make a salad." So I'm like, "Okay, make one of my salads, Ruta." So, but yeah, I find it a relaxing thing to do.
Ruta is, I mean, she's a lot of fun.
She is.
But she says her favorite thing to make is reservations.
Yeah.
So I have to ask, because the one thing that I don't like is the cleanup. Do you have someone else who does that, or do you enjoy doing that yourself?
Well, if I have a family event, I mean, I have sister-in-laws and stuff who will always get up and, family will help. But sometimes it depends. Sometimes I'm in the mood just to do it all. But you have to be I mean, you don't have to be. You have to be a very organized cook, in my opinion. I'm very organized. Being a teacher, I was a little overly organized. But I think with my cooking, I'm also organized as well when it comes to setting it up, cooking, and cleaning up.
And Danielle is asking, where is your show? You have a YouTube channel and you have your iPod. I mean, your podcast that you're
I have my
doing.
podcast, right?
So all of that information will be on my YouTube channel. So please check it out. And great interviews. I listened to the interview today with Don Most.
Yeah.
Because Don, the first time I interviewed Don, it was Don and Linda Pearl, and we had dinner at Sardi's.
Okay.
And it didn't feel like an interview because I just turned the tape recorder and we just sat and talked. It just the greatest.
I was talking with Linda and Patrick Duffy a few weeks ago. I interviewed the two of them, both of them lovely. And then they have Linda and Don have that connection from that movie Crazy Mama with Cloris Leachman back then, and then she was on Happy Days as
Happy
well.
Days
Linda.
as well.
Yeah.
So great.
Well,
No, I saw that you had interviewed them, and that's next on my list to listen to. Linda's a very dear friend of mine, so that's wonderful. The cookbook.
yes.
What was the inspiration for you to sit down and these recipes? The recipes that are in the book, I'm sure are tried and true recipes throughout your life. But what was the inspiration to sit down and finally write this book?
Well, like most of the recipes are family traditions, things that I've had since growing up. And then as I started experimenting myself, I would write things down. After I did that cooking show on the Hallmark channel, I started a cooking blog, Cooking with Mr. C, it was called. And a lot of the recipes were on there. And I'm like, well, maybe I should tweak some of them and try doing something a little different or change something. So that's what I started doing with the cookbook. It took about 2 years to do, because I wanted to. There are 80 recipes in the book, and I really wanted to decide which ones I thought were the best. And I got some people to come over and taste and say, well, which one would you put in the book? Which one wouldn't you put in the book? So, yeah, it was a lot of work to do, but a lot of family traditional recipes, and then a lot of things that I just put together myself.
Is a cookbook harder than a children's book to get out and get published, or is it the same type of energy?
What's harder? My fourth book that's coming, which is a novella, an adult novella. That's harder than the cookbook, which I thought it'd be easier. But the cookbook was harder because I did all the pictures as well, the photography. My children's books, I had an illustrator. I had someone illustrate that. So the cookbook was more time consuming. I would definitely say time consuming over the children's books.
John, with all of the hats that you've worn and are still wearing, which hat fits you the most comfortably?
I think I could put a couple of hats on my head and they would all fit comfortably. Truthfully. I mean, I enjoy writing. I can really sit. There are times where I just can't write. I just can't do it. And then there are times I could just sit in front of the computer for days and just keep writing. Teaching came very naturally, very easy. That's why when I was going to the HB studios and teaching came up, I'm like, well, I got to go with the teaching right now because it's here. It's, it's something. I was realistic. My acting teacher, I don't know if you knew Bill Hickey, William Hickey.
Oh, of course. I went to HB too.
Yeah, he was my acting teacher. And he knew I had gotten offered to become a teacher. And he said, well, of course you're going to do that. I said, well, of course I am. He said, but, keep up with this as well. Teaching is acting. You're on the stage every day. So,
with all the celebrities that you brought into the classroom, was there an underlying theme with all of them? I mean, there's a different vibe when someone is being interviewed, such as you and I are doing right now, than it would be being in a classroom situation with the students asking questions. Did you have a list of what the questions would be prior? Or did they just raise their hand? What was the format?
No, we would research the person. They had to research the person and figure out where they came from, where they were born. Not that they would tell them. They said, well, that'd be a good question to start off with. Where were you born? What kind of student were you when you were our age? So those are questions. Going back, not to mention names, going back to my girls who were not happy with one of the people that they interviewed, this person later on, of the hundreds of people my students have interviewed over the years, this person told me, did you ever think, she said to me, it's a she, do you take any suggestions? I said, well, of course. She said, do you ever think of letting the kids just ask whatever they want? And I'm like, no, because that's not my process. My process is to show them, research and how to go about it. Maybe I'm discovering a future journalist. They really worked hard. Some kids harder than others, but would really work hard and finding out as much information that they could find on these people, and then put questions together. And then as a class, we would say, which questions are we going to use? It was a very systematic situation. So, I mean, I guess in one sense, I agreed with those girls, but afterwards, the person said to me later on when we were texting each other, if I would take any suggestions, which I always do, but I may not agree with it. But the overall of all these people, kindness. The overall theme was kindness. That everyone was just so kind to children, which was so great to see. I mean, who wouldn't be most likely kind to a bunch of students in a classroom?
Who was the first? I mean, the first one who said yes to you?
The first person who said yes.
I mean, in the classroom.
In the classroom, it was a chef, Lydia Bastianich.
Yes.
Lydia was the first, but she came to the classroom. She came out to the classroom. She was like one of the first to do it for us. And then came Fran, and then a lot of other people. I mean, I had three. I know you're a big TCM fan and you want to be a TCM host, don't you?
Yes.
I know you do. I know three of the TCM hosts because all three of them allowed my students to interview them. So it was pretty cool because I had a class one year obsessed with movies. So I got Ben, Dave, and Alicia. The kids interviewed the three of them. It was great.
Together or individually?
Individually. And it's funny when we all had to be home from March to June 2020, when no one could go to school and we just, learned from home. Alicia came into our classroom. I'm at home. Everyone's in their home. Alicia's in our home, and Alicia did it for us. So,
wow.
So they got to know all three TCM hosts, and the three of them are just great people.
What was your process in terms of reaching out to these subjects for your class? Did you have a form letter, or did you just go back to that young boy that you were?
That young boy, quality of getting people's attention, it was the same thing, basically. And when you do get to meet certain people and know certain people, it becomes a little bit easier to get them to notice you. So I was thankful for that. But when we were home, those 4 months, like I said, Alicia did it for us. And they love movies so much. They love the movie Herbie Rides Again, an
Oh,
old Disney film with Helen Hayes, Ken Berry, and Stephanie Powers. So I told Stephanie Powers, she said, "Of course I'll talk to them." And we were all home at the time. We were all in lockdown. And what a thrill to have Stephanie Powers coming all into our homes during lockdown.
well, how wonderful it is to get those yeses. That's
Mhm.
what I focus on. The no's,
Right.
everyone has their reasons. Was there one that you don't have to mention a name, but someone that you really, really wanted who just said no to you?
Well, it came to sometimes not getting a response, or we got a response, a very kind response, which we appreciated.
Mm-hmm,
If we got
mm-hmm.
a no response, we really appreciated them contacting us and saying, they're so proud of what we're doing and that we're in school every day and keeping safe. So Lin-Manuel Miranda, Betty Buckley, the nicest of notes. So we appreciated that. And then some people would just ignore us, and one or two would ask for a fee. But yeah, it's interesting.
I've got a question here from Dee again. I will bring this up here. And she says, did you ever get someone on for a student who was really inspired by them?
Um, okay, so there was a movie about Mr. Rogers, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. So they had interviewed Matthew Rhys. I got to know Matthew Rhys when I did the TV show The Americans, and really nice guy. So so he portrayed this journalist in the movie. We got the real journalist who it's based on for the kids to interview, and it really inspired one boy in my class who wants to be a writer. So he got to see how an actor portrayed this real person, and we got both of them for the kids to interview. So that was very inspiring. And then there's just certain people that they interview that they interviewed Maureen McCormick and Barry Williams from the Brady Bunch. So it was like, that was super cool,
That's wonderful.
And we weren't allowed to go anywhere. And we would when they ate their lunch, we would watch I Love Lucy every day. So they saw every episode of I Love Lucy the entire school year.
And it still holds up.
And it still holds up. And then they got to interview little Ricky, Keith Thibodeau. He said, "I will do it." And then they got to interview Lucy Arnaz. I mean, the daughter of the two of them. So it's I'm very lucky. I think back and I look at it and I'm like, how did this happen?
Because you showed up. That's how it happened.
I showed up every day.
And of course,
you're right.
To you, John. If it wasn't you, there may have been more no's, but they said yes. So I want to do some wind down questions just for the fun
Okay.
of it. So I begin by door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3.
I could choose. Let's go for 2.
Number 2. And the question is, and this is a statement, and just finish this. My actions are intentional and they bring me closer to my goals. You mentioned earlier manifestation, and I believe that manifestation, I'm writing a show now about my life in this business. And as I've been writing this, I realize the people that have become friends, the people that I got to know, that I really put it out there that that's really what I desired in my life. And I made it happen. And obviously you've made it happen as well. So I'd like you to talk about your thoughts on creating the life that you've created.
You were mentioning before about, sometimes we have to accept the word no. And I'm able to accept it, but I don't take no the first time, maybe. I push the no a little bit. And yeah, you push it a little bit and you see something could happen. Maybe you'll get a firmer no, or maybe you'll get okay.
Or a softer no.
Or a softer no.
Yes.
And I'll push with some reasoning behind it. I just won't say, oh, come on. No, you can't say that. I give reasons why you should, oh, come on. And 95% of the time it works.
I agree. I totally agree.
Does.
And I thank you for saying yes to Rose. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
So I want to, Howard Tucker, and I talk about this a lot because he gave me a great calendar, and it's a calendar of Be kind every day. And I truly believe in this. Um, and I'm just going to read a statement. And I just want to know, just go with the answer.
Okay.
It says, put a bird feeder in your yard or outside your window. Do you take the time to really sit and enjoy, or are you always on the go?
I'm always more on the go, taking the time to sit back and take a good look at things. I'm trying to become more aware of, but I'm still in that mode of always on the go. Like, what's the next thing? Who's the next guest on the podcast? What's the next book going to be about? But I do have my downtime. I love movies, so I'll go sit myself in a movie theater, and I know how to relax that way. With television, I'm a big fan of like old TV shows. I go back to the old ones, and I know how to find my calm, quiet time. So it's a good mixture. I think yeah, it's 60-40. 60, go, 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 go. And 40, all right, you know, take time to enjoy the view,
Good
as
for
they say.
you.
As they say.
As they say, I love that. Um, and along the same line, the next question goes along with what I just asked you. When was the last time that you really saw a beautiful sunset and really enjoyed it?
Um, hmm. I would probably say in the fall. Yeah. I mean, the fall is my favorite season.
Mhm.
So, and I like going for a walk. So, I mean, nowadays, if the weather's decent, in which it's been a mild winter,
Thank God for that. I mean,
yeah.
when I think about what some people in this country have gone through over the last 5 weeks,
Hmm.
and the world, actually, we
Exactly.
are lucky. We are so
Yeah.
lucky.
Yeah. But I would say probably the fall. If I go for a walk at a certain time, you see the sunset. Yeah. As we get older, as we mature, you have to take the time to stop and look and just appreciate things. I mean, I appreciate everything that's happened so far, and what will come my way. I think if you put things out into the universe, I it helps. I really think it does.
I do
And
too.
yeah, and be good, be kind to one another, and it'll come back to you.
With the work that you're doing now, with your podcast and with your YouTube channel, what's your favorite tool that you use to get the word out about what you do
You mean
in social
on
media?
social media?
You have a
Oh,
certain
yeah,
platform.
yeah, Twitter and Facebook. I'm not a big Instagram person. I just started it not
Mhm.
too long ago because people say, "Oh, go on Instagram." But I have a big following on Twitter. I mean, you can just
Mhm.
look up my name or at Cooking with Mr. C, um, and Facebook, and you just get to meet a lot of people, and we're all so connected. Over the past couple of years, you keep meeting more people, and it's like, well, I know that person, and oh, you know that person, and I said to somebody today, I'm trying to get someone on my show, and I don't know if it's going to happen. And the person I was talking to, we just started talking about other things. Just happens, you might, and then we just saw how many people we have in common. So, but yeah, it's and like I said, the podcast up next with John Contratti is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Buzzsprout, Stitcher. It's all out there.
Well, if you let me know privately who it is that you're trying to get on, I may be able to help you. So,
Okay, maybe. I got a list, Richard.
um, and we pretty much have talked about this, but I'm going to ask you again and
Okay,
reiterate where you were at think of 5 years old.
okay.
What career did you think that you would have when you were 5 years old? And do you feel that you had the career that you envisioned at that age?
Well, as a 5-year-old, I thought I was going to be a teacher, and that happened. I mean, it was a 31-year career, but as I got a little bit older, I still wanted to be a teacher. But I liked the entertainment business. I wanted to know these people. I tell my students all the time, I said, if we need to know their names, they need to know our names.
Amen. I agree with that.
So if Richard Skipper I need to know his name, he needs to know my name.
And we do now.
And we do now.
Um, so you are a creator. what does your creativity give to you?
I guess it's just like a general joy. It's a joyous feeling when you get to spend time with pretty much anybody, but when it's something that you've always wanted since a child to meet and get to know some of your icons, I guess, some of the
Mhm.
people you grew up. I mean, I have a friend, her name is Shari. She always says to me, "Do you understand what you're doing? Do you see how surreal this is? All the people that we grew up going to the movies to see and and watching on television are now some of these people are your friends." And I'm like, yeah,
I know.
and years ago, I was always a little nervous meeting certain people, and not at all.
Mhm.
Not at all, right? Not at all. It's like they're just like us. Have I? We'll talk later. Have I met a few people that were not so nice? Yeah, absolutely. There are a few
You
out
know what I
there.
say about that? Everybody has a bad day, and
Right.
maybe you caught them in a bad moment. Every
Right. But when you hear about they've had bad moments with a lot of other people you meet, and then it's not you. It's not their bad day. It's them. You know.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and you
Mhm.
can't take it personally. You just can't.
Right. No. No.
Um, so, um, again, from Howard's calendar, uh, I'm going to ask, one last question. Uh, with everything that you've done, um, do you believe in having a bucket list? And what's on that bucket list?
That's a good question. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I turned down a role which people thought I was nuts to do in a film, which it's a big deal. I would like to be on in a few things that are
Let's
filmed.
back up for a moment. You have your reasons, or do you want to talk about those reasons for why you?
It was the timing, elderly parent, it's some of those things where you're going to be far away. And I mean, everything's good. My mom is great and stuff like that, but you just worry about certain things. So, I mean, I appreciated the offer. As I said, it was to play a teacher in a motion picture. Um, but the timing was just not right. And I appreciate it. But my bucket list, I would really like to do something here in New York. I mean, like you said before, I would just do walk-on stuff, the Royal Pains, the Americans. I mean, I've done little things like that, Flawless back 99. Um, I'd like to be on the Gilded Age. I would love to
Mm,
be on that show or and just like that. I mean, something New York based.
yeah,
If I could get on something New York based, just a part, that would be a
I would.
bucket list.
I would love to see you take those elements of what you did in that classroom with young kids and build that into something bigger so that we can see the process of these kids being able to ask these celebrities the questions that these
Right.
kids ask. I would have
It's
given anything to have been able to be in those classrooms.
yeah, it was pretty great. I mean, when word got out on who was going to be in my classroom, I mean, it was the buzz of the building, everyone peeking in my classroom. I mean, I showed them the original Willy Wonka movie with Gene Wilder, and
Mhm.
then a week later, they're interviewing two of those kids from that movie. So it's just amazing. It amazes me, but it's the kindness of all these people who said yes.
Well, John, I say thank you. Thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you continue to give.
Thank
Keep
you.
doing what you're doing. It's all great. I'm going to give my closing comments.
Sure.
This hour flew for me. I hope you had a nice time
I
tonight.
did have a great
I
time.
had a
Thank you
great
for
time with you.
having me and everyone for listening
Thank
to
you.
me.
Thank you, all, everyone, for being here. I'm going to give my final word, and then I'm going to turn it over to you, and you've got the final word tonight. It could be about anything that we spoke about that you want to build upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to leave everyone with tonight. Everyone, thank you for being here. And as we go for the next 40 days and 40 nights, let's all do a lot of introspection, regardless of whether you're religious or spiritual, or Catholic or Jewish or Buddhist or anything. Just take this time over the next 40 days and 40 nights just to do some introspection and think about what it is that you all bring to the table, food and otherwise. Um, each day, as you all know, I pull a word, and the word that I pulled this morning was spectacular. That describes John. He's spectacular because he lives his authentic self. He's done what he's desired to do with his life. The other night, I watched an interview with Jane Fonda. I don't know if you saw it or not on CNN with Chris Wallace.
Yeah.
And it was, did you see it?
She got very emotional with her about her father too, right?
Very emotional. But
I
the
did.
thing that what I loved her saying was that she wasn't afraid of dying because she felt that she had done so much, but that if it did get to the end and there were unresolved things, that would be the things that she would regret.
Right.
That was what jumped out at me. And I think that each and every day we have the opportunity, we can think about it or we can do it. Get out and do it. I mean, John is a perfect example of this. Just get out and do those things that are going to make you happy. And again, with John saying yes to Rose and being here tonight, it's very easy to go through life. I'm reading Shonda Rhimes' book now, The Year of Saying Yes. Say yes more than no. Show up. Be there. As you all know, I end every show by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. Pick up the phone and call someone that you haven't spoken to in a while and let that person know how they matter to you. As a dear friend says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And someone else said, we're all in the same storm, but we're in different size boats. I don't care if you're in a yacht, a raft, a canoe, or a sailboat, or if you're pushing a tugboat upstream. Whatever boat you're on, just make sure that you have a skipper by your side. And with that, I'm going to leave the screen. And John, I'm turning it over to you. And you always have a place at my table. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you to Richard and Rose and everyone tuning in tonight to watch me. What do you want to watch me for? Just do what you want to do. Do what you like. That's what I do all the time. And as you heard, it pays off. It works really well. So thanks for listening, everybody. And thanks again, Richard. And I hope everyone has a great spring out there. Hopefully the weather will stay nice. Take care, everybody.